You're good to go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So glad to have all of you here. When Ellen approached me about this topic, we came up with the title of The Impact of Urinary Tract Infections and Dehydration in Persons with Dementia. I also, you'll notice at the end of the talk, I added constipation. I want to say that ahead of time because those three situations are kind of interrelated. One can cause the other. And so I figured it would be good information to have. We go about our healthy mental and physical lives every day, taking things for granted. We drink what we want to drink. We eat what we want to eat. We rarely think about how much we've had to drink for the day. We don't worry about being hydrated or anything like that. We go to the bathroom when nature calls without a problem. Well, that's not so for those who have dementia, especially those who are elderly and have dementia. Let's see. So we want to go to the objective here today is to have a better understanding of causes and prevention of urinary tract infections and dehydration in persons with dementia. This is our main focus here today. What has to happen to reach our objective? We have to have an increased knowledge of how our bodies work. Without that, then we really won't understand why someone became dehydrated, what we can do to prevent that from happening. The differences in young, healthy people and the elderly, especially those with dementia, we again go back to the idea that we're healthy and we do what we need to do to keep ourselves hydrated. But now we have the charge of helping someone else stay in that state. We have to change our mindset to adapt to the needs of those with dementia. We have to leave that idea of just grab water when you want to and here's something to drink it or whatever. I kind of thought about this. If you've ever had surgery or not felt well and someone is trying to force you to drink liquids or to eat something and you don't want to do it, you understand how frustrating that can be. So imagine you're elderly, you have dementia, and you don't want to drink. So this is quite a daunting task to encourage people to do that. We've mostly been concerned with our loved ones or the ones we care for about their mobility, their behavior, and their safety. But now we have to add nutrition and liquid intake, bowel and bladder function. It's a never-ending job. So that's where we are. How hard can this be? Well, it can be pretty hard. Slide. How our bodies work is part of what we talked about is so important. Water makes up 60% of our body. We think about that. That's an awesome lot of whatever is in our body. We think organs and circulatory system and all of those make up more. This is how important water is to our body. We need to maintain a healthy balance. If we don't have that balance, then we end up with urinary tract infections, dehydration, constipation. As we age, the feeling of thirst becomes less noticeable. I'm seeing this now. I'm almost 73, and I know that I do not keep myself hydrated as well as I should. And I am in complete control of my body and what goes in and comes out. So I don't have that feeling of thirst quite like I'm sure I did when I was younger. Our bodies, as we age, can't store as much water as when we were young. One of the reasons is fatty tissue contains less water than muscle tissue. Who knew? So we think about that. As we age, what happens? We decrease in muscle tissue and probably increase in fatty tissue because our lives become more sedentary, we're eating what we want, and we're not as active. Women usually have a higher percentage of fatty tissue. So what happens there? We tend to dehydrate quicker than men. They have more muscle mass and we have more fatty tissue. Let's see, the brain and the kidneys possess the highest percentage of water. Think about that. Two really important organs in our bodies. But in dementia, who has a brain that is hydrated well enough? Probably. Think about it. Stands to understand why our brain, if not hydrated, we can end up with cognitive issues from that also. Slide. Dehydration. Next slide. Okay. Okay, dehydration. We'll talk about an overview of dehydration. Let's see. Yes, okay. It occurs when you use or lose more fluid than you take in. Kind of makes sense. Your body doesn't have enough water or other fluids to carry out normal functions. It can affect our body systems. It can affect our neurological status, our urological status, gastrointestinal status, and circulation. So you can understand how important being hydrated is to our entire bodies. Anyone can become dehydrated. It's more dangerous in the elderly and in young children. Water helps to protect those organs and flush out waste, toxins, carries nutrients and oxygen to the cells. So without water, then we end up with problems in all of those situations, especially in children. Remember when our children were young, those of you who have children, and they would start with vomiting and diarrhea. We would call our doctor, and one of the main things they would say, make sure they're urinating, make sure they're wetting, make sure they have tears, make sure their mouth is moist, and their skin turgor is real good. Well, all that applies to the elderly also. Slide. Causes of dehydration. Again, diarrhea and vomiting. And we again are speaking of the elderly and people with dementia. I realize that young people can have early onset dementia can happen in younger people. So they're not quite as at risk as much as the elderly is for dehydration. Medications. Think about it. You may be taking a diuretic like Lasix or furosemide. You also may be taking laxatives because your bowels are not moving well. All of those things can be dehydrating because they are absorbing water in the body and they are causing you to urinate more than normally. A lot of high blood pressure medications may have some diuretic effects. So if dehydration is an issue, you may want to touch base with your loved one or the person you care for's physician on that. Age, because again, that inability to recognize thirst. Lower volume of water in the body. Thirst is not as acute. So this is what's happening because the body doesn't require as much water. Fear of incontinence. A lot of people hold back on liquid, even in the early stages of dementia. They don't want to wet. They don't want to have to go to the bathroom. So they don't drink because they understand. They're still at that level where they understand what goes in must come out. Illnesses. They may be sick, the flu, COVID. Any of those things can cause dehydration. Caffeine is another one. We all love our coffee. We all love our colas and everything. Well, caffeine drinks such as coffee, tea, caffeinated colas can cause dehydration. So, and they encourage urination, which can, because of the caffeine, which can again cause that dehydration. Mobility issues. Think about that. They're unable to get up and get the water. They're very unsteady. And then when they get to where they need to get where the water is, they don't remember what they came in the room for, maybe. So they leave and they go back and sit down without grabbing anything to drink. They're afraid to fall, so they don't get up. And dementia can cause a dehydration. You think about it, they get up, they go to the kitchen, they've forgotten what they came there for. If they didn't forget what they came for, they look at the faucet and they forget how it works. These are those simple things that we don't think about, so we don't understand, especially if they live alone in the early stages. They don't remember where the cups or the glasses are. They don't remember how to communicate to another person that I'm thirsty or I need water or anything. And their inability to open a container, something that simple. We must remember that. So let's say we leave our mom at home that particular day. You could even put a little ice chest by her chair, making sure it's not in the area where she could trip. And you put a couple of bottles of water in there so that when you call her during the day, you can say, hey, Mom, grab one of those bottles of water. Let's drink something because I'm drinking right now myself. Unscrew the cap on a bottle of water. They're hard at first. Unscrew it, then screw it back lightly. Break that seal for them so that it's easy for them to twist it off. Those are the kind of things that will help. Slide. Signs and symptoms of dehydration. Dry mouth, dry tongue. They may even try to speak and you'll notice the tongue is like sticking to the top of their throat because it's extremely dry. They could have chapped lips. They're just constantly trying to produce saliva and not able to. Little or no urination. We always want to be aware of the quality and the quantity of urine that they're voiding with little notes, and we'll talk about that later. Sunken eyes. When our children get sick and we look at them and we go, oh my gosh, our grandchildren, he's not feeling well, or whatever. Well, it's that same thing, that same appearance. Fatigue, they're tireder than usual. They don't want to get up. They're not moving around. They normally want to go for a walk or whatever, and they're not doing that. Muscle cramps, more trouble with movement. I can remember the years my husband played softball on weekends and probably didn't hydrate well enough. And by Sunday nights, he would jump out of the bed with muscle cramps caused from the lack of water and liquid and losing so much through sweat. So that's something we have to remember too. So if they're rubbing their legs and they feel like they've got cramps or whatever, that could be a telltale sign. Weakness, dizziness, lightheadedness, those are all symptoms of dehydration. Immediate confusion and disorientation with a quick onset. Now, we're going to go to urinary tract infections later on, and that is one of the symptoms of a urinary tract infection, which could have been caused by dehydration. Again, urinary tract infections, fever, and constipation are symptoms, and a rapid pulse. We want to, by the time we get to a rapid pulse, we're fooling with an emergency room visit. Prevention, slide. Prevention of dehydration. Encourage drinking of fluids, reminders. If they're able to read and you leave them notes that they're able to see, you can put on there, drink today, drink plenty. Spoke about earlier about the phone call. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, look, there's some bottled water right there by you. Just drink a big sip of that, okay? And you might have to call them every couple of hours to encourage them to drink. If you are a caregiver and you're with them all the time, offer them small amounts at a time. Don't give them a big glass of water and say, here, drink this. Maybe offer 2 ounces at a time, very often though. And they'll say, well, okay, so she'll leave me alone, I'll drink it, and it's just a couple of ounces. Remembering to record that. Invest in adaptive drinking equipment. No spill cups, straw stabilizer, bright colors. And then look online to look and see what there is as far as adaptive equipment for your loved one or the one you're caring for. Again, set up those reminders. Use mirroring to encourage them to drink. If you're drinking something, also tell them to drink at the same time you are. Let them watch you do it, especially in the middle stages of dementia. Offer tasty fluids and foods with liquid content like melons, soup, cereals with milk, popsicles, nutritional supplements. Any way you can get that liquid in counts for liquid intake. So remember, if you're giving them gumbo or you're giving them soup or whatever, that counts toward their liquid intake. If incontinent, offer fluids during the day. Limit the fluids after 6 p.m., especially if they're unsafe in getting up and anything like that. So we want to get the bulk of our liquids in before about 6 o'clock in the evening. Also, if they have a sundowning issue, sundowning can start anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 o'clock in the evening, depending on when it becomes dark, usually, earlier now than in the summers. So we want to remember to get the bulk of our liquid intake probably before those hours. So in the mornings, we're pushing it. Lunchtime, we're pushing it. In between, we're pushing it, okay? So that we don't have to deal with the sundowning as much and frustration for both them and us. Assess what stage they're at as far as their dementia so that you could put these things into place. You know that if they're in their early stages, it's not as hard to encourage and to get them to follow your instructions. If they're in the middle stages to the end, well, then it's very difficult. So you have to be able to what? Change that mindset and change it often. Avoid beverages, again, with caffeine and alcohol. They have diuretic properties, meaning they cause you to urinate more than normal, and that increases the chances of dehydration. Slide. Urinary tract infections. So we've talked about the dehydration. Now we're going to move to urinary tract infections, and you're going to see the correlation between the two. Our overview on urinary tract infections is they're caused by bacteria entering the urinary tract by way of the urethra, the tube that allows the passage of urine from the bladder to outside the body. If we go back and we think about a biology class, we know that we have the 2 kidneys, and then from each kidney comes a ureter that leads to the bladder. And then from the bladder to the outside is the urethra. Well, the first place where bacteria will go usually is through that urethra. So if we know that anatomy, then we understand that. Urinary tract infections are more common again in women than men. We luck out. We get the babies, we get everything. They can cause sudden and severe confusion, kidney damage, and sepsis, which is blood poisoning. And it's because of the way that women are built that this is the way it is. The causes, slide. The causes of a urinary tract infection. Dehydration, one of the #1 causes. So we go back to our lesson on dehydration, remembering what we need to remember from that. Hygiene issues. We want to do showers over baths. Usually when someone has dementia and mobility issues, they're showering anyway. Hopefully not getting into a bathtub and them trying to get out by themselves or someone trying to get them out, which would be very dangerous. So we pretty much, that's a moot point, but we would always want to shower over sitting in the bath water, which is dirty water, where the bacteria can reach the urethra, causing a bladder infection. Incontinence. One of the biggest things is inexpensive continent briefs. They do not have the absorption as your better quality incontinent briefs do. So what happens in an inexpensive or poor quality, the urine sits against the urethra, the meatus, on women and in men, and then the bacteria builds up and goes through to the urethra to the bladder, causing a bladder infection. So try to avoid poor quality incontinent briefs if you can. One suggestion that could be a little bit of a saver would be, with my mom, we did the incontinent briefs, but we put a poise pad inside the brief to give a double layer of being able to absorb that urine and keeping it away from the skin. And then when it went to change time, we just had to take out the poise pad and still had the incontinent brief there. Indwelling catheters. Back in the day when I was a young nurse, everybody had a catheter. Everybody on God's green earth had a catheter. Well, that's no more. They realize now that they cause severe urinary tract infections. They introduce bacteria, and they're just not good. One of the reasons we would use an indwelling catheter would be with urinary retention. They have a condition where they cannot empty the bladder at all. So we have to get the urine out. So they have to have a catheter. Sometimes we can do intermittent catheterizations, and you can be taught that. But really, it's a last resort. Sometimes if we have a loved one who has something like a bed sore, we don't want that urine to get into that sore. Sometimes you would have to have an indwelling catheter. Neurogenic bladder. This is where the brain is really not telling the kidneys and bladder to do what it needs to do. So what happens is the bladder holds the urine and is not able to empty it. Well, that urine just sits in the bladder, building up bacteria, which can also cause a urinary tract infection. We see this a lot in our dementias, Alzheimer's, Lewy bodies, multi-infarct dementia, even in Parkinson's. So if you have a dual diagnosis there, you would definitely need to watch for neurogenic bladder. What you see in a neurogenic bladder, and we'll talk about this a little bit, is that they'll go to the bathroom, you take them to the bathroom or whatever, and not 15 minutes later, they would need to go back. Well, what's happened is they've not emptied the bladder totally. So they have that urge to go again. So we're going to work on methods where we can try to encourage the emptying of the bladder. Their reduced physical mobility. They sit, and they sit with clothes closely fitting to their to the genitalia area, which can cause that infection. Diabetes. They do not have the ability to ward off infection like a normal person does. And prostate problems in men, mostly from enlarged prostates pressing against the urethra, causing the bladder not to empty the urine as it should. Slide. Symptoms of a urinary tract infection can be a burning feeling while urinating. This is when we have to really be astute and watch our loved one or the one we're caring for, because when they sit to urinate, they may go, oh, they make a face and grimace. Well, it's burning and it's hurting when they urinate. So if you've ever had a urinary tract infection, you know what that feeling is like. They may not be able to communicate to you, oh gosh, it burns, or gosh, it hurts, or whatever, but you can watch their facial expressions. As one of my favorite people in the whole world, Yogi Berra, said, you can observe a lot by watching. And that's the truth. So we want to watch our loved ones and the ones we're caring for. This applies to everything we do with them. Their facial expressions, their body movements can tell us a whole lot. We notice blood in the urine, a foul smell, dark concentrated urine. Those are telltale signs of a urinary tract infection. Again, that increased urge to urinate, to constantly get up, can't empty their bladder. Change in their appetite. They don't want to eat. They're not eating. They're not drinking. They're not doing anything. They're sick. Constantly holding themselves and are fidgeting or scratching in that area because it itches, it hurts, and it burns, and the skin can be somewhat irritated from the bacteria. Overall decline in their function that's unexplained. Pain in their back, or their side where the kidneys are, or in the abdomen. So we want to watch them grabbing their back or their sides, or folding over with pain in the abdomen. Fever. Not always does someone with urinary tract infection have fever, but it's pretty common. Increased falls. Their mobility has decreased, they're weak, and they're tired. A quick, immediate, almost change in their behavior, causing aggression, agitation, anger, and delirium. This is when you definitely probably need to be on your way to the emergency room. But We have enough signs and symptoms before we get to that point with a call to the physician, a collection of a urine specimen, and bringing it in. And usually the doctor can diagnose the urinary tract infection like that. Avoid the hospital as much as in dementia. We know it's there, especially now with COVID. This just causes even increased confusion and agitation. So whatever we can do to be proactive rather than reactive, noticing those symptoms early on usually helps us a whole lot. All right, slide. Prevention of urinary tract infections. We know that we have to stay adequately hydrated. We know that. Encourage complete emptying of the bladder. This is what urologists say, that when you go to the bathroom and you empty your bladder, they sometimes, if you're not having difficulty emptying it totally, just sit. So get your loved one or the one you care for just to sit a little bit longer after they urinate, talk about something, tell a story, run a little water in the sink or whatever, encouraging them to urinate again so that in 15 minutes they won't have to go back again. Or what urologist told me is urinate and then have them stand up. If it's not too difficult, count to 10 and sit back down. Sometimes that will encourage the bladder for you to be able to empty the bladder even further. In the long run, those things will help you because you're not having to assist them in the bathroom every 15 minutes. Proper hygiene. Again, we talked about this and how important that is. We want to, and especially if our loved one needs assistance in wiping and cleaning after urinating or a bowel movement. If we're going to help them, we want to encourage them, especially in females, only in females, go from the front to the back. We consider the rectum the dirty area, so we want to go from the front to the back. If they're sitting, we just go behind them, they lean forward, and we can assist them in wiping, cleaning themselves. That's very important. We don't want to drag bacteria from a bowel movement to the area where the urethra can be obtained. Loose fitting clothing. Everything today's got spandex in it. Well, 50% of my closet probably has spandex in it, but spandex fits tight. It causes a rubbing onto the area that can have and develop bladder infection. So we want to try loose fitting clothing. We want to use cotton versus nylon underwear. Kind of makes sense, kind of breathes, Cranberry pills. I spoke with Dr. Rosenzweig at the Baton Rouge Clinic, who's a little urologist there, and she recommends, instead of cranberry juice, which we all think in our minds cranberry juice helps urinary tract infections, and she said it really doesn't. But cranberry pills, which are available online, you can order them, health stores or whatever, a more concentrated form of the cranberry, which help to prevent urinary tract infections and help while you have a urinary tract infection. There is one caveat here on the cranberry pills. They're not to be taken with blood thinners. So you may want to check with your physician before you give them to someone to make sure they're not on anything that has blood thinning properties. And I'm going to venture out here, and I'm not really sure, but I'm thinking cranberries probably have vitamin K in them, which allows clotting of the blood. So this is why you wouldn't do it, but always check with your physician before you give the cranberry pills. Probiotics encourage normal bacteria, encourage normal flora and everything, and they help. Good bowel regimen, because we don't want constipation, we don't want straining or any of that kind of stuff. And again, more women have urinary tract infections than men because of the way we are structured. So if your loved one is a female, not saying not to notice with men, but notice more so with women. We'll talk about constipation now. I kind of tied that in because as we get older, we do have issues with constipation. I remember my grandmother used to always say novenas for bowel movement. She was constantly constipated. Well, she was older, probably wasn't drinking what she should drink or anything. Causes for constipation, it's one of the main ones with people with dementia, is that they have less awareness of sensation. just as they do with urinating. So you have that with constipation. So what happens is they don't notice that they need to go to the bathroom, so they don't go. So they don't go for 24 hours. Then they don't go for 48 hours. And then we have a loved one who is constipated. Their inability to communicate pain or discomfort. So we have to, again, watch. Are they grabbing their belly? Or anything like that. When they sit on the toilet, are they straining? Does it look like it hurts to have a bowel movement? Their diet. We need a diet high in fiber. We all need that, but especially people who are less active and older need high fiber. The correlation of urinary tract infections, dehydration, and constipation are so close, and you're going to see that because of some of the same causes for dehydration and urinary tract infections happen with constipation. You could end up with all three. You could end up with just one, and hopefully none. Medications can cause constipation. So we need to be aware of the side effects of medications, and you can look those up very easily online and see causes constipation, whatever. And you may want to talk to your physician and say, can that be substituted for something else? Does she really need to take that medication or whatever? Again, dehydration, the absorption of no water to help the stool move through the intestines. Age-related weakness of muscles. They're not able to push because they don't have the strength to be able to do that. A decline in their physical activity. Again, another symptom of dehydration and urinary tract infections. Prevention of constipation. We want to promote the liquid intake, again, to prevent the dehydration. Increase the diet, again, the high fiber, 20 to 35 grams a day. Observe, which is difficult, which is not easy, but you can go online and look up the foods that are the highest in fiber and try to get you more of a bang for your buck by doing that. Observe and record the bowel movements, the amount and appearance, just like you would with the urination. Increase their physical activity. Try to get them up constantly every 2 hours, walk around, walk outside on these beautiful days and everything. This will help to promote the bowel to move. It will promote and encourage gas. Encourage going to the bathroom after a meal. Sometimes 20 to 30 minutes after we eat a meal can encourage the bowel to move. And this would be a good time to try to encourage them to take them to the bathroom to see if they can have a bowel movement. Slide. The signs and symptoms of constipation are straining again when trying to have a bowel movement, hard stool like pebbles. Well, we definitely know that that is a telltale sign. Sometimes you can even have liquid diarrhea and move around hard stool. So you have to kind of understand, is this diarrhea or is this just liquid stool moving around hard stool? A feeling of needing to go after a bowel movement, they still need to go again. Having 2 or fewer bowel movements a week. Belly pain, that folding over and rubbing their belly. The swelling of their belly. They're filling up and backing up with gas and stool above where they need to go. Inability to pass that gas. Vomiting, nausea, because they're full here, it's coming up this way. Loss of appetite, they have a full feeling, so they're not going to drink or anything or eat. Fever can even be caused in constipation, and increased confusion, again, same as dehydration and urinary tract infections. Slide. One of the things I like to encourage you in caring for your loved one is to have a daily log, if you don't already. You can get those online, but you can buy a very inexpensive, simple little notebook and make each page a day where you would record things like toileting, their bowel movements, when they went to the bathroom, urination, description. If you have a caregiver or you are a caregiver of someone else, do this so that when the family comes, they can see what's going on. Or you have multiple caregivers and they can go back and say, oh, look, mom hadn't had a bowel movement since Tuesday. We need to do something about this, okay? We can record up the hygiene, their bathing or their showering and what they did. Liquid intake, the food, what they ate, what they liked the most, so we can encourage those foods, foods that had liquid content in them, medications, all their medicines they're taking, and any health concerns and notes, put it on that same page and let the person that you report to or let your physician know what your health concerns are. And add activity to that also, what you did that day. Did we go for a walk? Did we do exercise? Did we just sit all day? Didn't want to get up, didn't want to do anything. All right. Slide. In wrapping up, one of the things we want to do is set goals. Be willing to change those goals. If we're not willing to change and change our mindset, none of this is going to work. And we'll be frustrated, causing our loved one to be frustrated also. Understand dementia. If you don't understand it now, read. Do whatever you can do to understand the stages, the challenging behaviors. Each is an individual. We want to know that we have unique issues with each one of our loved ones, their stories, their home situation, their caregivers, and the stages they're at. We want to know what the dementia, UTI causes. It can even cause death. The immune system is unable to fight the infection. Usually pneumonia and urinary tract infections are two of the highest reasons why people die in the elderly and people with dementia. Also, we want to understand our inability to change their behavior. If we don't understand that we're not going to change them, that we have to change, then we will have a very difficult time. We want to treat our loved ones and the ones we care for always with kindness and respect in all of this. Understand they're not doing any of this on purpose. Understanding your role as a caregiver, especially number one, is take care of yourself. Today's presentation is only a highlight of which I hope will help, knowing full well that no matter what you do to prevent dehydration, urinary tract infections, and constipation, it may not work with all, but it's surely worth a try and worth being able to understand what's going on. All right. Any questions?
Thank you, Marianne. That was an awesome presentation, such good information, and also useful. So thank you so much for that. We do have a few questions, so I'll just read them off to you. So somebody asked, you mentioned sundowning. Can you give us a little more information, maybe a definition on sundowning?
Sundowning is more of a phenomena, I think. I don't know if I'm exactly the right person to do it, but I have seen it. I've spoken about it before in other talks and everything. It occurs usually in the late afternoons, evenings, when a lot of our patients and loved ones with dementia have certain fears, water, they become paranoid, they become these kind of things. Sundowning is the reason it's sundowning. It's usually when the sun is going down and it's the night and the onset of night. And it's that fear of the darkness more so that they don't quite understand. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it's pretty classic in most people with a true diagnosis of Alzheimer's. Probably, you know, I wouldn't even venture out to say a percentage of people that have sundowning, but it's not uncommon. So lighting makes a difference in helping sometimes with sundowning. Closing drapes sometimes in the evenings to prevent some of the sundowning. When they're sundowning, they roam, they walk, they get confused, they become anxious. There's different ways people exhibit their sundowning. Some people just don't talk, just sit, look frightened or whatever. Some people rattle on, some people walk and wander. You have to watch to make sure they don't wander during sundowning and that kind of stuff. So I think that's just a small version of it. But I would suggest probably talk to your physician about it more so and has more knowledge than I do.
Thanks, Marianne. Another question we had is this going to be on video and shared? Yes, it has been recorded And the link to the recording will be sent out after the lunch and learn sometime this afternoon. Another question for you, Marianne, is are there any over-the-counter UTI tests? Seems like it would be helpful to have, especially if the person with the UTI and dementia has a hard time getting out of the house.
That's a great question. Appreciate whoever asked that. I don't really know. Back in nursing school, I remember there were litmus tests that indicated somewhat of what's going on as far as a pH level. And when they do a urinalysis, they are checking the pH level, but they're also checking for bacteria, white blood cells, a colony count of how that bacteria is growing and stuff. So technically, I'm not aware. So my ignorance, if there is something out there, but probably the best test would be to collect that urine specimen. Now, how easy is that in somebody with dementia? That might not be real easy. You can try to have a cup. You want to have a clean cup, as clean as possible, or a sterile cup. And if they are prone to urinary tract infections, you can ask your physician for cups that are sterile, so that when you are able to collect the urine, at least you get a better idea of a culture. Because what they're going to do is they're going to run a urinalysis first, which will give them an idea if there's a bacteria count that's elevated. Then they're going to run a culture on it, which can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Usually in 24 hours, they'll be able to tell if there is enough of a count to show an infection. They'll start an antibiotic, but by 72 hours, they should be able to know a specific antibiotic to that bacteria. Now, there is a question about every time somebody has a bladder infection, does a doctor order an antibiotic? Some cases they do not, especially people who are real prone to them because of the overusage of antibiotics. So it would be up to that doctor to make that decision. You might say, well, why are you not ordering an antibiotic? And he can give you a reason, he or she can give you a reason why.
Thanks, Marianne. We got some more feedback too to contribute to your answer also. Someone said, hi, I work in a hospital. Don't think we use the strips like we did a few years back, maybe more for home health. But again, we never used it for hospice when I worked hospice. So that's good input. Thank you for sharing that. Another question is, can you talk a little bit more about the use of straws? Do you recommend straws, cups with straws? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a straw is it can be an attractive nuisance to some. If a person is able to handle a straw, remember, a straw takes and shoots it to the back of our throat. If we're not able to handle that fluid when it gets there, then a straw becomes very dangerous. And you'll notice your loved one or the person you're caring for would have this. Well, what's happened is that liquid has penetrated the trachea probably, and they were aspirating on that liquid. So that would be a telltale sign. If they're prone to pneumonia from aspiration, definitely never a straw. If they're in the early stages of dementia, can handle a straw, then fine, but you're going to have to watch for that. It can be very dangerous in people who are not able to handle that straw. So if your loved one or the one you care for has that issue, put a sign above their chair, by their bed or whatever, no straws to everyone that comes in, so that they know not to use those straws.
Okay. Another question is, can you provide any alternatives to water if their loved one doesn't like water? And your thoughts also, like in the same note, thoughts on like Gatorade or Powerade for electrolytes?
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, water is our best source, always, of being hydrated. It's the least expensive, plus it's the best. So go figure. They realize that so much they've learned to bottle it. But the one thing I read in all of this is that 75% of the people in the world are somewhat dehydrated. That probably right now, if we think about what we've had today, we've had probably things that are causing things like caffeinated drinks. We've had our coffee or our tea, and probably at lunchtime, we're getting ready to have a cola or whatever. So what we want to do, especially with our loved ones, the ones we're caring for, is know what the most important liquids we can get in them because they are limiting what they want to drink. So the best thing would be Powerade and Gatorade are okay. But the problem with Powerade and Gatorade is that they're high in sugar, and they also don't provide quite the number of electrolytes we want to replace in someone who may be dehydrating. So it may not be our best choice. I mean, I'm not saying don't use it at all, which I mean, you know, one of the biggest things I saw when I was reading was coconut water, which it has a natural sweet taste to it. It also is high in potassium, calcium, amino acids, things they need. It's rich in electrolytes. That's your sodium, your potassium, and those things. And it works off fatigue. It can give them a little bit more energy. So coconut water would be a very good substitution for that water. And they said, go for the organic brand because it doesn't have the sugar in it that others do. Because remember, a lot of our elderly people do have diabetes. So we have to be cognizant of that also. And foods high in water. I also read about this. Leafy green vegetables have a lot of water in them. And again, the melons, the berries, and celery is an excellent source of some liquid extra that if they want to chomp on celery. And this came from a site, Coastal Urgent Care in Gonzales. They had posted that on their site, and I saw that this morning. So I'm glad that the person asked that question.
That was good timing. We have another question. Can Crystal Light be added to water?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you can add anything. Look, the best part of all of this is if they're not drinking water, but they're drinking Crystal Light, then you fought half the battle. I mean, think about it. I mean, if they won't eat anything, but they'll eat ice cream, well, it's got calories, So we have to think of that from the mindset. We can offer water, but Crystal Light, any of those drops that you add to bottled water are nice. Any of your sparkling waters would be good, flavored waters, all of those things would be good. We just say water because it's accessible and it's inexpensive.
Okay, and we got some more feedback too, to add to the question about the at-home UTI test. This is great feedback. It says, yes, there are several kinds of over-the-counter test strip kits available at local pharmacies, as well as medications for short-term use, but use cautiously with doctor or nurse practitioner assessment. So Ms. Cynthia, thank you for sharing that too. That's good feedback.
Yeah.
Another question, Marianne, too, is can you tell us what is the amount of liquid an elderly person should consume per day?
Okay. The magic number is 6 to 8 glasses a day. A glass is not 12 ounces, it's 8 ounces. So that would be 64 ounces. That would be 48 to 64 ounces of liquid per day. Remembering to count those foods that have liquids in them too, if you're having trouble getting them to drink more, just for plain liquids. So you can include that in your count. We're probably pipe dreaming here on the 64 ounces on some people, but that could be our goal. That particular day, she hit 55, yay, great. Whatever we can do to get as close to that mark, we should do to keep them well hydrated. And it's important. And again, remember, all people are not drinking. I notice it. I'm 73, and I notice that I don't pay attention to being thirsty. And when I drink water, I go, God, I was really thirsty, So ever since I started writing this topic, I will say this, I'm encouraging my husband and I to drink more water because we do drink a ton of coffee, and I do drink a diet cola and a day, and we'll have a glass of wine here and there. So we're doing what we're not supposed to be doing. So I'm trying to encourage the water for us. So I would do that for y'all too.
Thanks, Marianne. So that is all the questions that have come in. Ms. Cindy also shared the name of a common over-the-counter test kit is Urostat Ultra with cranberry. But that is all the questions we have for now. But thank you, Marianne. This was a fantastic presentation. And I really feel like this will help people just day to day make their lives a little bit easier. So, and their loved ones' lives too. So thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for joining us today too.
Thank you very much.
Bye. I hope to see y'all next month at our Lunch and Learn. Thank y'all.